feels like I've been here all before. Radio humming, the world feels right. Every little thing's in tune tonight. Shadows fade, the truth comes through. Fresh start in the morning blue. Hey, now blue sky shining down. Left your feet, don't touch the ground. Laugh it off, let the good times stay. Oh yeah, it's a blue sky day. Oh, coffee, steam, and a smile breaks free. Simple joys are enough for me. Stones roll out, but I don't mind. Sun's still waiting on the other side. Turn it up, feel the sound. Good vibrations all around. Hey, now blue sky shining down. Lift your feet, don't touch the ground. Laugh it off, let the good times stay. Oh yeah, it's a blue sky day. No heavy weight. Wake up, sunlight tapping on the door. Feels like I've been here all before. Radio humming, the world feels right. Every little thing's in tune tonight. Shadows fade, the truth comes through. Fresh start in the morning blue. Hey now, blue sky shining down. Lift your feet, don't touch the ground. Laugh it off, let the good times stay. Oh yeah, it's a blue sky day.
Hey, good morning. You're listening to the Conservative Cat Show. So do appreciate you being here. Subscribe while you're here. I appreciate it. We've got so much to get to this morning, so I'm going to jump right in. Good morning, Cat and Chat. Go ahead, throw your comments into the comments section. Usually at the end of the show, I take all your chats, your super chats. So save those for the end. Stick around till the end. I like to take your chats at the end. I'll periodically, as I take breaks, take chats. We've got so much planned for you this week. We're going to be doing a rerun because I am traveling. I'm going to go see my folks up in Illinois for the holidays. So tomorrow we're going to do a rerun, and it's definitely a rerun you won't want to miss. It's why Kwanzaa's a fake holiday. I've been hyping up this video because a lot of people don't get it. This holiday is celebrated from December 26th all the way through the 1st of the year. And people don't get that this guy was a cult leader. Ronald Everett McKinley, I refuse to call him by his stupid, Swahili name that he gave himself. It means master. Like, how egotistical have you got to be to call yourself, to rename yourself? Number one, he renamed himself because he wanted to commit all kinds of crimes under an alias. This is MO. This is like a usual suspect type stuff. Like, people change their names to commit crimes and to do it all under an alias. And that's what this guy did. 2 women testified against him, said, hey, he wrapped us up in electrical drop cords, whipped us with cords. I mean, there was evidence of prolonged severe abuse. And he's the founder of this holiday, Kwanzaa. And it's just so wild to me that people in my chats, every Monday, I look at the chats, comments, and I try to comment back. I don't moderate comments, by the way. So, if you guys are upset that people are in the chat saying things, I'm not a moderator of comments. I don't have time for that. Okay. If you support the show using patriotpumpenergy.com and use promo code conservativecat, maybe I will start moderating comments, but I don't even really believe all that moderating comments. I mean, I'm doing the show. You guys comment. You guys use the chat. The chat's for you. But somebody was in the comment section and they were like, well, just because it's a modern holiday doesn't delegitimize it. No, it does when that modern holiday says that it is celebrating the practices of ancient African practices. The whole premise of the holiday is that it's ancient African, an ancient African celebration, but it was created in the 1960s. So it's sort of like an oxymoron. It's not an ancient African holiday because it was created in the 1960s. Boom, roasted. So somebody was in the comment section saying just because it's modern doesn't delegitimize it. Yes, it does, because the whole premise of the holiday is that you're not celebrating modern things in African culture. You're supposed to be celebrating the ancient African culture and ancient African tenets. And the tenets of Kwanzaa are all modern. There's and they mimic the menorah, and they light candles, and it's all political, corporate or collective socialism, collective responsibility as one tenet of the, one candle on the, I forget the name of it, but their version of the menorah. So go find that video. We're going to do a rerun of it tomorrow as I travel, but we'll be back at it with more news and more stories and more specials for you. I like to do Hanukkah from the Christian perspective. I've still got to do that show yet this year. So we'll get into all of that this week. Today, what are we talking about? Nick Shirley has exposed this Somali daycare fraud. We went into deep detail about that yesterday, but there's new twists in this story. So this story has taken the internet by storm. This is rightfully so. There are new twists, new developments coming out. Some officials, Tim Walz officials, they are scrambling to try to cover this up, and they're not getting their stories straight. So those are the new twists. We're going to get to those. And then we've got the what I brought up yesterday, that this has been going on since 2018. It's probably going on in states like Illinois, California, New York. Actually, Ted Cruz, he came out on a podcast and he said he encouraged the Trump administration to go into Illinois next. Illinois, New York, California. And he was on a podcast saying this. I'll pull that up here in just a second. But yes, it's been going on for decades in multiple states, specifically in Minnesota. This has been going on with the child care system since 2015. There have been convictions, but there haven't been enough. And I was very critical of Kash Patel. I'm not a fan of Kash Patel. I'm not a fan of the FBI. I'm not a fan of Pam Bondi. I think that Susan Wiles, the chief of staff for President Donald Trump, I think that she was instrumental in pushing Pam Bondi into that role, the attorney general, because she's kind of a Florida gal, right? A Florida swamp gal. And I think that she pushed Pam Bondi into that role. I would have loved to see Matt Gaetz in there anyway. I want to see the Jan 6ers avenged. I want to see people involved in that COVID scam cuffed. I want to see Anthony Fauci cuffed. And Patel's FBI is not delivering. So it took Nick Shirley, this guy with a video camera and a YouTube channel, to go out there and expose the Somali Daycare fraud and then provoke Kash Patel to issue a statement. So this has been going on since 2015. It was going on under the Trump administration. It was going on under the Biden administration. So this has been going on since 2015. There's a 2018 local news special that they did on this, and there were convictions back then. So this is nothing new. I know everybody's like, it's taken the internet by storm, but I mentioned this yesterday. This has been going on 2015, really started to be exposed in 2018. So we're going to be talking about that. And, you'll get a lot of people saying that, okay, the Somali influx, you import a third world country, you're going to get a third world country. And people are chalking it up to that very simplistic outlook. Okay, we imported Somalis. Somalis are duping the natives here, and they're exploiting the systems that we have in Minnesota. I hope we don't just stop there, because I think that with this investigation, we're going to find out that people at the tippity top, I mean, some of these Somali immigrants who were already convicted in this fraud scandal, they have connections to Ilhan Omar. And I refuse to believe that it's just, and yes, this is a big part of it, the influx of Somalis. And when you import a third world, you're going to get a third world. I do believe that, but I think that it goes deeper. I think that people knew, and I want to know what people knew what when, if that makes sense. And I hope that we don't just brush this off as immigrants are going to do low society things. I hope that the conservative movement doesn't brush this off as like, well, this is what happens when we mass import illegals and immigrants. And I'm all about that. Yes, I think that we need to prohibit, and Donald Trump has done some of it. He's been very moderate on it, where he's prohibiting travelers or prohibiting visas. And he's doing that with this recent proclamation he issued, and, banning certain countries from coming here and even attempting to get some sort of visa or some sort of immigration status. And I'm all for that. He's added, I think it was like a total of 20 countries with either outright prohibited from getting sanctuary status or some sort of temporary status, or limiting it in some sort of way. And I'm all for that, but I don't want us to stop there, because I think that we have what you would call traitors, treasonous people who have allowed these Somali immigrants to take over the state of Minnesota, because the state of Minnesota is no longer the state of Minnesota. It is Somalian. It is Somalia 2.0. They've immigrated here. They're defrauding the taxpayer, and then they are shipping that money back to their families, and in some cases to the terrorist groups, allegedly. So this is no longer Minnesota. It's been there's been a full takeover, and I refuse to believe that the citizens and the politicians are all dumbfounded by this. I think that they knew that the Somalis were taking over, and they let it happen. So we're going to get to that. Illinois lawmaker is inviting the Marines now, as Pritzker has declared this victory over the Supreme Court ruling. There's an Illinois lawmaker, a Republican, saying, yeah, bring in the Marines. Whatever the president has at his disposal and whatever he can do, he needs to do that, because Chicago is a mess. So we're going to talk about that Supreme Court ruling. Is Trump going to deploy the Marines in Chicago? We'll have to see. All right, let's subscribe to the channel. Take this break to subscribe to the channel. Here we go. Bongino took on the deep state and he left with his tail between his legs. Corruption too big to deal with. Yeah, I think that Bongino left because the corruption's just too. And I really do believe that Bongino, because Kash Patel has talked more about his country singer girlfriend while in this role than he has about avenging the J6ers, getting to the bottom of who was involved in this COVID-19 scam. We knew masking, we knew vaccines weren't working. They forced it on us anyway. And people should answer for those crimes. Probably killed thousands of people simply by saying that you shouldn't take ivermectin. So the fact that we don't have people in cuffs really pisses me off. And I think Bongino, you're right, left. That's an interesting take. Tail between his legs. Yeah, the corruption is too big to deal with. And you have to realize where these people are at. Same thing with Marjorie Taylor Greene. I'm not the biggest fan of Marjorie Taylor Greene or your Thomas Massey's, but I think she left because she realized, the corruption's too big. With the Epstein files, I've talked about this, where you're never going to see them. Okay, this whole bill where all of the House, pretty much, I think there was one vote, nay vote, to release the Epstein files, and then it passes the Senate. This is a bogus bill. Everything that's been released has been released. And when Pam Bondi says that, she's telling the truth because she can't do anything about it. It's Tulsi Gabbard or the national intelligence agencies that have to unseal these court documents that they sealed when this whole Epstein thing started. And they have to be directed by the president to do that. And that's where I think the client list is, in the sealed court documents. And that has nothing to do with the FBI at this point or the DOJ. I think that Marjorie Taylor Greene realized, there's nothing that we can do. And she left, Bongino left. There are certain things that even the Trump administration won't touch. I love what the Trump administration is doing. Don't get me wrong. There's been a lot of progress. I mean, my eggs are $1.94 now, right? My gas, I haven't been able to fill up my tank for $30 since 2017. And I got to do that yesterday. So there's been a lot of great things that Trump has done, but there's things that they won't touch. COVID and the atrocities that were committed during COVID, they're not going to ever touch those. They're not going to touch what they did, these FBI agents under the Biden under the Trump administration 1.0. They're not going to touch the guys in khakis who incited people to go into the Capitol. And then they threw the book at these J6ers for trespassing, although they were incited by FBI agents. Like, those FBI agents will never see the inside of a jail cell. Although J6ers did, they saw the inside of a jail cell and then some, because they were given thin little mats to lay on and a bucket to piss in. There's just the Epstein file or the Epstein client list. They're not going to touch that. And the corruption is deep, and there's going to be some people who are willing to expose it, like your Nick Shirleys. And there's going to be some people who run with their tail between their legs, as he had said about Bongino. All right, let's get to this. Minnesota officials have now responded to the viral ghost daycare video where independent journalist Nick Shirley had exposed that these daycares are empty. Okay, now their response here is not going to go over very well with people. The Minnesota officials revealed yesterday that the state is taking a second look at the several daycares featured in this YouTube video that Nick Shirley had released in this video, and they're going to be taking a look at these daycares, and they're a part of a fraud investigation now. Okay, and these officials have said that they used to do investigations prior to the ones that they're going to be launching now because of the video. Okay, they said that they've visited in the past, and their past investigations uncovered no hard evidence of fraud. Okay, so speaking on Monday, Department of Children, Youth, and Families Commissioner Tiki Brown addressed the video directly. So Tiki says that 10 facilities featured in the YouTube video has been visited at least once by the state over the last 6 months. I do want to address that. So Tiki Brown, sorry. I'm like talking really fast and out of breath. So Tiki Brown, she says that, oh, we've done prior investigations, we've visited these places, and we did it like once every 6 months as part of like standard licensing checks. What the hell? Like millions of dollars is allocated every year to these daycares. Just one daycare, the Quality Leering Center, as the internet has so lovingly called it, which it is called that because the sign was misspelled. They get like $4 million a year. Okay. I think they got $4 million in 2025. You're visiting this place only once every 6 months for standard licensing checks. I mean, there should be somebody there every day checking in on these kids and checking in on the efficiency of taxpayer dollars going to these childcare centers. But I digress. So Brown says that the state is now reviewing each site again to check on the claims raised by the YouTube video. Brown said that previous visits were unannounced. So when they would go once every 6 months to check in on these places, that those visits were unannounced and children were present at each of the checks. So the state also says that the number of children at the daycares were consistent with what was expected at the facilities. So each facility, I don't know the Quality Learning or Leering Center, I think it was like 120 kids, something like that, are supposed to be there. Each of these daycares have X amount of students or children that are supposed to be there. She's saying that when they did their past investigations, the number of kids checked out. Okay. Now, Brown said that while there have been prior investigations into some of the places, none have uncovered findings of fraud. Okay. According to the report, none of the centers had their money stopped because of fraud. So all of these centers have continued to get money because once every 6 months when we checked in, everything checked out. So here's where the story gets twisty. So they clarified, I guess, in a report, state officials, that the Quality Leering Center had been closed. And that, yes, this one is closed. And this is fascinating because the New York Post yesterday, they said that, yes, it's closed and it was recently closed. So the one that Nick Shirley went to, that Quality Leering Center, that one is in fact closed. Okay. But it remained open on the ground because the New York Post confirmed that they had sent a person there at the Quality Leering Center. And, following this viral video, the New York Post went there and kind of did a stakeout. And following this hullabaloo, this internet frenzy of the daycare Somali, like this is taking the internet by storm. And the New York Post reported that there were kids there the next day or on Monday. So the weekend, we saw that no kids were there at these daycares. And then they get there on Monday and all the kids come in. So there was a local who told the Post that that's unusual and that he had never seen kids there before. The Post said that they saw about 20 kids as they staked it out that day. So Ibrahim Ali, I'm assuming he's Somalian, the son of the owner of this Quality Learning Center. He claimed that he was the son of the owner, who was the manager, and said he was the manager. So he's the son of the owner of the Quality Learning Center, and he is the manager, Ali. Okay. And he claimed to the Post on Monday that Nick Shirley's visit came the day before, or before they had opened for the day. Okay. So Shirley came at an inconvenient time, and we just hadn't opened for the day. It wasn't like Nick Shirley was there at 5 a.m. in the morning. Okay. He got there during normal business hours when a daycare would be open. Okay. Which is fascinating. I'm sure if I were to dig Nick Shirley, the alleged office hours or the alleged hours of operation, I'm sure Nick arrived during that time period. Okay. And then this Ali character blamed the graphic designer for the Quality Learning, the site's now infamous typo on their sign. Okay. So it's supposed to be Quality Learning Center. And he blamed the graphic designer for the mistake. He says, what I understand is the owners dealt with the graphic designer. This is Ali, by the way, in the Post. He said he did it incorrectly, and I guess they didn't think it was that big of an issue. The owners of Quality Learning, his father being one of them. And he claims he helps out with homework and paperwork at the facility, Ali, and he's 26 years old. Okay. So he goes, that's going to be fixed, the sign. So I'm going to share with you, this is like a local news report. Lou Ragus, he is a reporter, local news. He said that it appeared to be opened. Okay. This facility appears to be open on Monday. So after all of this, Nick Shirley exposing these daycares being empty, all of a sudden kids are flooding into this building that looked abandoned. And despite initially it being reported that it was closed, officials on Monday, so the same day that the kids were coming in, the officials were reporting that this center was in fact closed. Take a listen to this report. Here we go.
To be talking about the viral video by YouTuber Nick Shirley visiting Somali-run daycares in Minnesota that received millions in taxpayer money and showing a lack of kids present. Well, I have a strange twist for you. The daycare that's getting the most attention from Shirley's video is the Quality Learning Center, misspelled as Quality Luring Center. While answering questions today, the state commissioner in charge of licensing daycares claimed that the Quality Learning Center permanently closed 1 week ago, which would have been before Shirley filmed his video. Listen.
I will share that our team was notified that Quality Learning Center closed just over a week ago. And I believe the details that were given at that time were around space concerns. And that's what was shared.
But after that press conference, we went back to the Quality Learning Center and vans were dropping off dozens of children. Parents and a manager told us the daycare is open and is legitimate. We saw state inspectors leaving, and we hope to find out by the end of the week if they made any new findings. I'm Lou Ragus. Follow for more news.
Wow. Okay. So you see what's going on here. Okay. Nick exposed it all, and they're trying to cover up, and somebody didn't talk to somebody, right? So obviously they're shoving kids into this daycare now to try to cover their tracks, but they didn't talk ahead of time because the officials are saying that it was closed and that it closed last week prior to Nick's visit. So the FBI, the Department of Homeland Security, the Treasury Department, they're all looking into the fraud allegations in Minnesota. The Minnesota Department of Children Commissioner Tiki Brown, who you had seen there, the Black woman, she claims that the Quality Learning Center closed down last week, which explains why there were no children when Nick visited. You know, that was before his visit, but the same day you had all of these vans shipping the kids in, and they were trucked in. Okay. One local saying it's the first time that he had ever seen kids go into that building. Okay. So they need to coordinate probably better next time when they try to cover up their crimes. You see what I'm saying? Like, I don't think that we can chalk this just up to importing illegal immigrants, importing the third world, and we're going to get a third world. I don't think it's that simple. I think that people know, and I think that they're actively working against the interests of the United States, and they have given over really Minnesota to the Somalians. And I'm going to play this clip. You'll see in this one where the kids are being trucked in. Take a look.
Is there fraud going on here? No, it's a video. I just want to know. What's your response? Huh?
Get the out of here.
What's your response to the allegations? Is there fraud going on here? And is there children? That's all.
Don't harass me for here.
We are aware of a video that's being circulated that has gained local and national attention about child care centers in Minnesota. While we have questions about some of the methods that were used in the video, we do take the concerns that the video raises about fraud very seriously. Each of the facilities mentioned in the video has been visited at least once in the last 6 months as part of our typical licensing process. And in fact, our staff are out in the community today to visit each of these sites again so that we can look into the concerns that were raised in the video. So I won't go into any detail about whether or not any of these have any open investigations. I will share that our team was notified that Quality Learning Center closed just over a week ago. And I believe the details that were given at that time were around space concerns. And that's what was shared. The previous one I mentioned that had been closed some time ago was Mako.
Wow. Okay. So complete and utter panic mode. We are entering into complete and utter panic mode, folks. Mommy, why are you taking me to a different school today? I could imagine these poor kids. And who knows, maybe these kids are, I don't know. Where are these kids coming from? Are they, legitimate children with parents? Are they a part of the Minnesota foster care system? Where'd they come from? Right? Why are you taking me to a different school today, Mommy? Shut up. Go Lear. Go Lear. Go Lear instead of go learn. Quality Learning Center. So the internet has exploded over this whole Minnesota Somali daycare fraud issue. And I am delighted to see that Immigration and Customs Enforcement and the Justice Department, they're looking into these bogus facilities, what looks to be bogus facilities. They're just fronts, like quite literally funneling money in. And then you've got some of these Somalis, maybe these worker bees, getting paid with the taxpayer money to go live lavish lifestyles. But some of that money might be going to Al-Shabaab, which is a terrorist organization. That money might be going to these Somalis to go ship to their families back home. And I think that it's important that we step back into the Wayback Machine, because this has been going on. And I made this very clear in my video yesterday that this has been going on since probably at least 2015. It was really exposed in 2018. This is why I'm so frustrated with Kash Patel and the lack of movement on this. Okay, like under the Trump administration 1.0, Biden administration, Trump 2.0, we should be nipping this stuff in the bud. Okay, and it's been going on for a decade and nothing's been done. So there's a video from 2015 reportedly used in a 2018 fraud prosecution. Okay, and it shows children being dropped off at one of these daycare centers, and then the parents come back moments later and then take the kids with them. Okay, so let me pull this up. I'm going to share this video with you because this video was used in a 2018 prosecution, but this video is from 2015. Okay, so let's take a look here. Here we go.
Scheme to work the daycare centers need to sign up low-income families that qualify for child care assistance funding. These surveillance videos are from a case prosecuted by Hennepin County. They show parents checking their kids into a center only to leave with them a few minutes later. Sometimes no children would show up. But either way, the center would bill the state for a full day of child care. This video from that same case shows a man handing out envelopes of what are believed to be kickback payments to parents who are in on the fraud.
Where was the money going?
I don't know exactly where it went, but
In order for the scheme to work, the daycare centers need to sign up.
Okay, so this is from 2015. The owners of the daycare would then bill the state for a full day of childcare and give the parents kickback payments for being in on the fraud. This happened in 2015, folks. The Somali fraudsters have been stealing from the taxpayers for years, a decade almost at this point, a decade. Like, what's going on here? So a local Minneapolis news story from 2018 presents some startling details. Okay, so this has been going on 2015. There was a 2018 sort of expose on this before Nick Shirley did any of his viral video content. Local news had picked up the story in 2018. So, and it's clear the entire Somali community is in on this. Okay, all of the daycare workers, what look to be daycare workers, they're all Somalian. They've all got the, I don't know what you call them, turbans or hijabs or whatever, blankets over their faces. They've all got that. So the whole Somali community is in on this. And I want to take it a step further, folks. Don't just stop there. Okay, we don't want to just make the Somalis be the bad guys in this. There had to have been people in this government that were complicit in this, that knew this was going on, and I want to know who knew what when. Minnesota lawmakers scheduled a hearing. So here's some startling details from a 2018 report. They scheduled a hearing after Fox 9 investigators exposed daycare fraud that could be costing taxpayers millions of dollars, and some of that money could be making its way overseas to terrorists. This is from 2018. I want to be clear. This is from 2018. Carry-on suitcases filled with as much as $1 million in cash are regularly leaving flights from Minneapolis St. Paul International Airport to the Middle East. Last year alone, government agents determined that the money transfers amounted to over $100 million. They believe a sizable amount is coming from fraud in the state's child care assistance program, which offers government subsidies to low-income families. So let me explain what's going on here with the suitcases back in 2018. So you saw this video here with the Somali woman in her full-blown blanket, only can see her eyes. Okay. And she, is giving money to the parents, a kickback to the parents who are in on the fraud. They come in, bring their kids in for 5 minutes, then they take their kids out. And this Somali Daycare in 2018 was charging the government for a full day of daycare for all these children. And they collect those millions, they shove the cash into suitcases, they ship it out of the airport to the Middle East, to their families, to terrorist organizations, who knows. They ship that money to the Middle East out of the Minneapolis International Airport. And government agents at the time in 2018 determined that this money was connected to this state child care program. Okay, so they already have investigated this, and there have been convictions, at least 10 daycare centers under active investigation for overbilling the state. And this is from 2018. Okay, there were 10 daycares that were currently under active investigation for overbilling the state. Most of these centers are owned by Somali immigrants. Members of that community told Fox 9 that the fraud is widespread. It's believed that some of the funds are being sent in the form of remittance payments to relatives in their homeland. Investigators also believe terrorist groups are demanding a cut of that money once it arrives. Okay, so maybe they're just sending it to their relatives back home. But at the end of the day, the terrorists are getting a cut of that once it arrives there, because guess what? Somalia is run by terrorists. Okay, so this all has a very familiar ring to it, doesn't it? So this happened in 2018. Part of the problem, I think lies with this relocation of Somali refugees. Somebody threw it in a total ban on immigration. I think that we've got to clean it all up. And the only way to stop the bleeding is to stop the bleeding and ban immigration entirely. That's where we're at with this, because we no longer have the state of Minnesota. It's been taken over. And that's part of the problem. These Somali refugees, of all places, Minnesota, they're relocating these refugees there to Minnesota. And Minnesota has a reputation for years, has been a state that has boasted that it has a very generous, much like Illinois, has a very generous social welfare program, social welfare benefits and programs. So the state, I guess that they've operated on a high trust basis. And I'm putting that lightly, because I don't know if it's just high trust ignorance. I'm willing to bet it's not. I think that it is probably more so not operating at a high trust basis, but operating in malfeasance and corruption. And they knew it was happening, and they didn't care, and they wanted it to happen. Now, I don't know if these terrorist organizations have connections to donating to some of these politicians who, look the other way or help facilitate this. Or some of these Somalians, perhaps in the form of a nonprofit organization, turn around and funnel money back into the politicians' campaign coffers and keep that politician in office. But let's put that aside. Let's just say that they're operating sort of on a high trust basis here, administering these programs, and they're sort of ignorant in all of this. When you have a huge influx of low trust people, Somalians are low trust people. Okay, it's a low trust society. I think that's evident by 60% of their marriages are incestual. They beat women for wearing something a little above their ankle. Okay. Brothers and fathers, they will kill young Somalian women who decide to have a boyfriend, come to the United States and decide to have a boyfriend, and they will do something called an honor killing. These are low trust people. Okay. It's a low trust society in Somalia. Don't believe me? Go visit. Okay. Go visit. Especially as a woman wearing pants, or a woman showing a little bit of ankle, and then come back and tell me that they aren't low trust people. Okay, so you have this high trust operation basis, when administering these programs, and you've got an influx of low trust people. Okay, so the implications of this are huge. It's kind of like, and I want you to think of this, it's like the social equivalent of a biological event, like an invasive species, say cane toads. Have you heard of this? Cane toads in Australia? Okay, go look it up. Google search it. This is a very invasive species, devastating Australia. They were introduced in 1935 to control sugarcane pests, but they became a pest themselves because there are no predators, natural predators to go after these cane toads. So they had entered an environment here where there's no natural predators, these cane toads in Australia. And this has caused a lot of problems. So you can kind of compare this. So this is the social equivalent to this biological phenomenon. You've got the Somalis coming into Minnesota, and there are no predators here. Okay, because they're a high trust operation when it comes to issuing these benefits and programs. And they've accepted this large influx of immigrants from a culture that is essentially a zero trust society. Okay, we can't trust them. We've shipped them in, and there are no natural predators for the Somalians. Okay, we should be very skeptical of these people when they come here, but we're not, and we've allowed them to take over, and they've become an invasive species. And I'm just equating this here for, simplicity's sake and for explanation's sake. Okay, they've become an invasive species, and without checks and balances, they've spread, and it is causing problems. Okay, so these people, Somalians, have quickly learned how to game the system. Okay, so in 2018, I want to be clear that this is a 2018 City Journal article, and it talks about the case of Fazia Ali. Okay, so Fazia Ali was a recently sworn in, this is from 2018, recently sworn in as a member of the park board of an upscale Twin Cities suburb. Okay, so this is a small local board, of a park. And Ali had a daycare center. The daycare center was in South Minneapolis and was suspected of billing the government for more than $1 million of bogus child care services. Okay, so they said that they were in this daycare, similar to what we're seeing now. They said that, hey, we're providing child care services. Government, we need $1 million of taxpayer dollars. Okay, $1 million to continue our child care services. According to Special Agent Craig Lisher, the FBI found records that she, Fazia Ali, a Somalian, the FBI found records that she was collecting a significant amount of money for a much larger number of children than there were actually attending the center. She was frauding the government. Ali's case also had an international component. We are aware that some of the funds went overseas, says the FBI. She was cashing out. She was taking the money from the government, cash, and then she was sending that money overseas. This is according to a special agent at the FBI at the time in 2018. He declined to specify the purpose of which the funds were put. Okay, why she was sending the money over to, at the time in 2018, why she was sending the money overseas. Okay, so Ali, how did she do this? She used a phone app to register charges to the Minnesota state government. Okay, so there was a phone app, and she was actually, while at this hotel, it was an $800 a night hotel in Kenya. She was vacationing there, and she was using a phone app to register charges for the child care services she was providing. They're not actually child care services, or at least not to the extent she was claiming. Okay, she pled guilty in March of 2018 to charges of wire fraud and is serving time in a federal prison. But the scam goes well beyond Ali. Okay, we're dealing with this in 2025. This was in 2018. Okay, so the total loss to the state's $248 million daycare program remains to be determined. We don't know how much of this daycare program is just complete bogus. Okay, I have no idea how much of this $248 million actually went to child care services. Maybe some of it went to child care services, but probably a good portion of it went to the Somali immigrants to do whatever the hell they wanted it to do with it, okay? Or maybe it was funneled back into the politicians' coffers. Some of that money could have been laundered right back into the politician campaign coffers. All of it remains to be determined, but we have a serious, serious case of deceit going on, okay? And the real damage, harder to measure here, is the high trust values, if not the complete malfeasance of Minnesota, where these newcomers come in and they dupe the natives so easily. You almost question if the Minnesota officials are duped or if they are participating in it, and if they're getting some kind of kickback by being in on the fraud, much like the parents were getting kickbacks in the 2018 case, like I just played for you. Okay, so it's either one or the other, either super high trust, naive idiots. And, why would you put your trust in a low society people, the Somalians? And how could you be duped so easy? It's either that or you're complicit in the corruption. So Fazia Ali in 2018 wasn't a criminal. If she wasn't a criminal defrauding the Minnesota government, I would almost have to give her atta girl, because you have to give her credit for the audacity. Okay. And these Somali immigrants have such boldness, okay, to slam the door in the faces of an American citizen, Nick Shirley, slam the door in his face, say, get the F out. Like there was one clip here of a daycare worker saying, get the F out of here. The audacity. Like I almost want to give them credit for the audacity here, because I'm like, wow, you guys got some cojones doing that to American citizens. Fazia Ali, and back in 2018, she was on a phone app, okay, while vacationing, calling in fraudulent charges. Like she was charging the government while on a phone app, while she was vacationing with money, living this lavish lifestyle with money she had frauded from the taxpayer. Okay. She's got some cojones. These Somali immigrants have got some cojones, which also leads me to believe that this isn't just Minnesota being naive, Minnesota being high trust to a low society people. It leads me to believe that they're in on it. Okay. And I hope that we don't stop there at, oh, these Somalian immigrants are just so terrible. Yes. For frauding the taxpayer. But I want to know, frankly, I want to know who are the traitors, who are the treason should be charged with treason for letting Somalia take over Minnesota. So the scope and scale of this is becoming more apparent, more disturbing day by day. And it's been going on for at least 10 years that we know of. Billions of taxpayer dollars is what we're talking about. And how many millions, even billions, were shipped out in suitcases from the Minneapolis, St. Paul International Airport. Shipped out, millions, billions of taxpayer dollars shipped out in suitcases to Somalia. And to whom were those dollars given in Somalia? For what reasons? And I will say, when you import a third world, you import third world behavior. But I hope that we don't just stop there. I hope that we continue to look into who knew what when and was complicit in it, if not outright advocating for it because they had something to benefit from the corruption. Okay. If you're not stopping corruption, then you're benefiting from it. Right. So this is very apparent in Minneapolis right now, Minnesota right now. This is what happens when you import third world countries. when you import people of low character, of low society culture, and we've got to stop doing that. Okay. Our culture is superior. American culture is superior. Christian values, the Christian religion is superior to all other religions. That's why everybody wants to come here, because it is a country founded and based on the Christian morals and values and religion. All right. Smash that like button. I'm going to take a quick break. Subscribe to the channel. We'll be right back.
You ever tried to explain your faith to someone who doesn't get it? Like you're speaking a different language? Peter knew that tension. He told believers to live such good lives among the pagans that even if they accused them of doing wrong, they'd see their lives and end up glorifying God. Translation: let your life preach louder than your lips. It's not weakness. That's warfare. You don't always need a microphone. You need integrity. You need consistency. You need to grind with grit and grace when no one's cheering. People are watching how you handle stress, how you treat your wife, how you react when life sucker punches you. They're watching to see if your God is real, because your walk is the evidence. You don't get to control what they say, but you can live in a way that shuts lies down over time. Let your honesty wreck stereotypes. Let your discipline echo louder than their gossip. Let your kindness feel like a gut punch to a world used to selfish men. Because one day, maybe not now, maybe not soon, those same people who laughed at your faith might remember your life when they hit rock bottom. And when they do, they'll know who to call. Live like someone's eternity might depend on it, because it might. You want a pre-workout that speaks for itself? Patriot Pump doesn't need hype, just results. Clean energy, no crash, built for men who lead by example, on the platform or in the shadows. Fuels what matters. Train for legacy.
Hey, smash that like button, share this out with your friends. So do appreciate you being here. I do have, and this is an archived show, and really what's going on in in Somalia, Freudian slip, what's going on in Minnesota kind of reminds me of a point in history. And I've done an entire show on this guy. His name is Juan Sanguin. And this is a guy who's been heralded as a Tejano hero. Okay. And, the Anglo-Texan, this is the history here. This is in the 1830s. Sanguin, he joined the Anglos, the English there in Texas, to free Texas from the Mexican regime. Okay, so Mexico had, at that time, had Texas, this land, and the Texans, the Anglos and the Tejanos, they were all against Texas in this authoritarian regime, and they wanted to fight for Texas independence. Okay, and that's what they did. They teamed up, the Tejanos and the Anglos, and they teamed up and they fought against the Mexicans. Okay, he fought with the Anglos, but then they, fought for Texas independence, and he actually became Juan Sanguin, the mayor of San Antonio. Okay, so the Anglos, they were, a little bit more advanced than the Tejanos. They were Spanish speaking, the Tejanos, Catholic, more Mexican traditions, but they didn't like the authoritarian regime of Mexico either. That's why they teamed up with the Anglos to fight for Texas independence. And then ultimately this leader, this Tejano leader, he teamed up with the Anglos, and then they won, and he was installed as the San Antonio mayor. But then it turns out, the Mexican armies, the Mexican authoritarian regime came back and they took over San Antonio. Okay. And to this day, some of these Anglos that fought alongside the Tejanos, they were Protestant, English speaking sort of values. To this day, they believe that this Tejano leader, Juan Sanguin, history tells us that he was a traitor. And he had given up San Antonio to the Mexican army. The Mexican army came in and took it over, and they were really peeved off. The Anglos were really peeved off that they had lost San Antonio. Like, they were nice to the Tejanos. They even gave the Tejanos leadership roles, for example, Juan Sanguin, but he gave it all up to the Mexicans. Okay, after they had fought and blood was shed for this independence. And, I'm just reminded of that story. If you guys want the full story, go find it archived in my videos. But it reminds me of Minnesota. Like, I want to know who the Juan Sanguins are. We can be mad at the Mexicans for coming in and taking over San Antonio after we fought for our independence and everything. We can be upset by that. But really, the person we ought to be upset with are the traitors, the people who handed it over. Okay, so who are the people who handed Minnesota over to the Somalians? That's what I want to know. Welcome back to the Conservative Cat Show. If you're watching, subscribe to the channel. Yes, I agree. I'm very disappointed with both parties. We were told that people would be held accountable. That's not going to happen. I'm disgusted with both parties. I agree with you. That kind of brings me to this story. I'm very upset with the Trump administration when it comes to Chicago and Brandon Johnson and Governor J.B. Pritzker, because I think that they are an open rebellion of the United States of America. Much like I think that there are traitors scattered in the Minnesota government who handed over the state of Minnesota to Somalians. We have anti-American individuals who are usurping the United States, and they are actively committing treasonous, traitorous acts against the United States. And I'd say JB is up there and Brandon Johnson are up there. These are actions that look like open rebellion. And I don't know why the Trump administration has not cuffed these two individuals yet. So we are going to be talking about the military going into Chicago and the Marines and the 82nd Airborne. Perhaps they go into Chicago post Supreme Court ruling. Okay. So this week, Governor J.B. Pritzker stepped in front of the cameras and he felt really good about himself because the Supreme Court has blocked President Donald Trump from deploying federalized National Guard into Chicago. So Pritzker immediately called this a win. Hang on, I'm going to take a sip of coffee. He says it's a win, not just for Illinois, but it's a win for democracy and for freedom. Okay, in his words, he says that this is curbing Trump's abuse of power. And he said that this is stopping our march toward authoritarianism. Okay, and he warned that communities shouldn't live in fear of masked agents, and they shouldn't be worried about being profiled and worried about wonder they have to, or worrying about the military coming into their neighborhood. Okay, very dramatic for a reason. He's seeking a presidential nomination probably in 2028. Very national, very presidential. Notice how he doesn't really talk about the Chicagoans. He talks about Donald Trump bad and he's coming after you. Okay, so he's an anti-Trump figure, and that's what his statement really makes clear, is that he's an anti-Trump figure on the national stage. So there is a question out there that nobody in Illinois leadership seems eager to answer. Why are Chicago families afraid? I don't think that they're afraid of the National Guardsmen. It's not the soldiers they're dodging. It's the gunfire fire. It's the repeated offenders. The guy that's been released 70 times and lights the woman on fire on the train. Okay, that's who they're afraid of. The slow collapse of the city because of the consequences. This is the consequences of the city's policies. And this was a city that used to be America's jewel, right? But Pritzker, in his little victory speech over the Supreme Court ruling, he didn't mention the repeat offenders. He didn't mention that there was a guy that was released 70 times and ultimately lit a woman on fire. He didn't talk about that. No. He also didn't talk about that this isn't the final ruling. This is a preliminary ruling. The court is going to consider this issue, deploying the National Guard, federalizing the National Guard at a later time. They're going to consider it fully. And this is where things get interesting, okay? Because as I told you a couple of days ago, there's a former Bush administration official. His name is John Yoo. He was on Fox News, and he basically said, like, hey, this preliminary ruling doesn't necessarily look like or it's not exactly the desired outcome that Democrats want, right? It's not what you think it is. Okay, Dems. According to you, the statute governing the situation says that the president has to be unable to enforce the law using regular forces before turning to the National Guard. And this is what the Supreme Court talked about in their preliminary ruling. So the Supreme Court's ruling, their interpretation of this is, hey, regular forces, that doesn't mean state police. It actually means like Marines, 82nd Airborne, active duty military. Okay, rather than the National Guard. You can't use the National Guard before using the military. In other words, the court may have just told the president, hey, don't use the Guard, use the Marines first. Okay, so suddenly, we look at Pritzker's little celebration here. It's a bit premature because Trump could just turn around, use this preliminary ruling to issue or to say, hey, we're going to deploy the Marines. If Trump has the cojones to do it. Like I said, we should have arrests of Brandon Johnson, Governor J.B. Pritzker. I'd love to see that carried out in cuffs because I think they're an open rebellion of the United States. But here's the reality that, nobody really wants to say out loud. Pritzker, this looks bad. Okay. If you're the governor, federal intervention, if it's on the table, you'd probably much rather have the National Guard troops there. People who know the community, who answer to civilian leadership, local leadership, work more closely with the local government there, who train for domestic missions rather than 82nd Airborne or the Marine Corps patrolling in downtown Chicago. So, Pritzker might actually really like this, the Marines being deployed, because then he can say like, oh, he's deploying the Marines against U.S. citizens and yada, 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 like Trump is an authoritarian. So he might actually get a real kick out of this, Pritzker. But I would say most governors, if your concern is, the federalization of the National Guard and, authoritarianism, if your concern is truly that, for the Chicagoans, then, the military isn't the better option here. Okay. You should welcome the National Guard and work with the president, and not go after the president for deploying the National Guard, because the National Guard is probably a little bit better when it comes to them marching up and down the streets of Chicago. So Pritzker is busy painting himself as the last line of defense against tyranny. As he's busy doing that, legal scholars are warning that this ruling could push things in a direction far worse, or far worse for Pritzker, and far more authoritarian than he would like, than what Trump originally proposed. Trump originally proposed federalizing the National Guard, who's trained in domestic missions, But it's going to turn out, I think that the Supreme Court is providing an opening here for Trump to use regular forces, stronger forces in the streets of Chicago. So, that kind of brings me to this response, the conservative Christian response here. I don't want to see, nobody wants to see this. Nobody wants to see the military in the streets of Chicago. Okay, but it needs to be done. Something needs to be done. So that way the people who live there can actually live there without fear. State Representative Adam Niemerg of Illinois, he talked about safety. He talked about the kids and the families. They want to walk up and down the Magnificent Mile and shop, during the holiday season. They want to go to a tree lighting without fear. And he talked about the weekends over in Chicago where the body count is so astronomical. Okay. Adam Niemerg pointed directly at Illinois' policy decisions like the Safety Act, the elimination of cash bail, sanctuary state laws. This is a result, and this is causing a result where residents feel very unsafe in their streets, and it is causing chaos. Many residents say that it is complete chaos in Chicago, Illinois. So Trump, Niemerg argued, didn't deploy the National Guard for funsies. Okay, this was something that had to be done. And this was actually the chiller option. Now, with the Supreme Court opening, we're going to have Marines possibly marching on into Chicago. So he did it. Trump did it because Chicago's leadership has refused to get serious about enforcing the law, and they've issued policy after policy that creates this chaos. Now, here's where the show slows down a bit here, folks. Conservatives have to be honest, even when it's uncomfortable. Okay, we should not cheer. You've got a lot of conservatives cheering, like, yes, federal force because it's our guy in office. I don't like this. I don't like that the military is going in and doing domestic missions. The military should exist to fight wars, not to police our neighborhoods. And this sets a precedent. Right now, we've got Trump in there, and he's doing it justly and saying that, hey, we got to get this under control, and we do. And he's not wrong. And I think that he should send the Marines in today and get this under control in Chicago. But I don't like it. It's our guy in office now, but when the Democrats get back in power here, folks, they're going to remember this, and they're going to say, okay, red communities, I'm going to deploy military because you guys are domestic terrorists and extremists, and you're holding KKK meetings in your houses, and we're going to make sure that you're not doing that. Okay. So I don't like the idea of active duty troops, Marines, discussed as a domestic option. It's not something we should celebrate. But here's truth. I mean, lawlessness invites power. Okay. When you have chaos like this, when local leaders refuse to enforce the law, when there's policies that are crafted that create chaos, someone of power is eventually going to step in and say, I'm going to bring peace to the chaos. And that's what President Donald Trump is doing. So federal intervention here isn't a cause, it's a symptom. So if Pritzker is actually serious about federal intervention and wanting to preserve, states' rights or local rights, then he's got to enforce the law and stop the chaos. Because the federal intervention here is a symptom. So Pritzker isn't talking about, fixing Chicago, the chaos, the violence there. No, he's giving speeches aimed at cable news, at donors, and, the future Democrat primary electorate. That is what his speeches and his rhetoric is all focused on right now. And it would be great if we had a Governor J.B. Pritzker who seriously was concerned about federal intervention. He's not seriously concerned about it. Otherwise, he would seriously be trying to remedy the chaos there, so that way power doesn't have to come in and intervene and try to bring peace. So, you know, a lot of people are speculating a Pritzker 2028 presidential run. And rightfully so. I mean, look at every response that he has to everything. Every response is national, theatrical, carefully branded to be an anti-Trump candidate. And, you know, he doesn't consider the people who are living with the crime, living with this chaos. He doesn't consider the people who might actually have concerns about the Marines. Like, think about the Marines marching up and down your streets. Really, I don't like that idea. I don't like them being deployed for domestic missions. I was okay with the National Guard, but our Marines, like, that's taking away from what our Marines should be focused on, which is, you know, foreign wars and protecting our national sovereignty at a federal level. Having them come in for, you know, domestic things that could be easily fixed with policy changes in law enforcement at a local and state level seems like not only a waste, but a little bit out of their purview. But the Supreme Court is giving Trump an opening to do that. And, you know, I hope that he does, because we do need to get the chaos under control and bring peace to the city of Chicago, because obviously Brandon Johnson and Governor J.B. Pritzker aren't doing that. But I would love to have a governor who cares about the people, cares about their concerns when it comes to federal intervention. Like, actually, like, you can say that you are concerned about those people, you know, dealing with Marines up and down their streets. You can say you care about them, but do you really? Because you would be fixing the cause, which is bringing about the symptom of federal intervention. You'd be addressing the cause, so that way the federal intervention doesn't have to happen. So Niemerg said it bluntly. State Representative Adam Niemerg said it bluntly. Pritzker puts political ambition ahead of public safety. Most likely he's welcoming Marine deployment. You know, with one side of his mouth, he says, like, I don't want federal intervention. But in his head, he's like, yeah, I love this because my political ambition, you know, takes precedent over what the public thinks or wants. You know, they might not want the Marines, but this looks really good for me because I can go out there and talk on a cable news channel about how President Donald Trump is weaponizing the Marines against citizens. And, you know, he probably really likes the idea of that. So if Illinois leadership truly cared about preventing federal intervention, they'd start by restoring order locally. They'd revisit failed policies. They'd empower the police officers, not handcuff them. And they'd stop pretending that refusing to prosecute criminals is compassionate. Okay, that's what Illinois leadership would be doing if they actually cared about federal intervention. So instead, we get these stupid press releases about Donald Trump, and this is a check on executive power, and I applaud the Supreme Court, and you get these victory laps. And really, if you cared about any of it, you'd be doing something to stop the symptom of federal intervention coming in. So bottom line, nobody wants Marines on Chicago Avenue. Nobody wants soldiers patrolling their neighborhoods. Like, really, nobody wants that. And the goal would be, you know, not more force, but less chaos. And if Pritzker was serious about his, you know, disdain for federal intervention, he would address the chaos that is going on in Chicago. All right. If Illinois wants less federal involvement, it needs accountability, more honesty, more courage to admit that their ideological experiments here have failed. Their peacekeeper initiatives, their community crime intervention programs, their ideological experiments suck, and they failed. But because we have leaders who refuse to enforce the law and they love their ideological experiments because they get enriched off of it, that nothing is going to change. I hope that Donald Trump does bring in the Marines to an extent. Nobody really wants to see that, but I mean, he's got it at his disposal, and we've got to bring peace to the chaos there in Chicago. All right, let's get to this story in Seattle. There's zero reason as to why a school should be asking students about their sexuality. But the Seattle public schools, they're asking 10-year-olds about their sexuality. And I've got that story here next. Smash that like button and subscribe to the channel. I'll be right back. Welcome to Conservative Cat Clips, where we deal with the truth, not talking points. I'm your host, Kat, and today we're putting a spotlight on something the abortion industry wants to keep you in the dark about: abortion pills. What are they? How do they work? And how are they hurting women? Let's talk about the facts. Over 54% of abortions in America are now done using chemical abortion pills. That number is climbing fast. Why? Because it's easier, it's cheaper, and it's quieter. But here's what they won't tell you. Abortion pills come with a serious risk. The process is two drugs: mifepristone, which actually ends the pregnancy, and misoprostol, which forces the body to expel the baby. Sounds simple, right? It's not. According to the FDA, 4,200 serious adverse events have been reported, including 28 deaths since 2000, the year 2000. And those are just the official numbers. In 2021, there was a peer-reviewed study that found that ER visits after chemical abortions increased by over 500% between 2002 and 2015. And here's the kicker. Many of these cases are coded as miscarriages, and they're coded as miscarriages because women don't, or they can't tell the hospital what actually happened and that they actually took these pills. That means the real damage, probably much worse. So way more than 4,200 adverse events since 2000. Now brace yourself. The Biden administration made it to where these pills were accessible by the mail with no person exam, no ultrasound, and no guarantee that the pregnancy had to be an ectopic pregnancy. So, I mean, you could be taking these in your 6 months, 7 months, 8 months along. And it's not, this could be deadly if you take it when it's not an ectopic pregnancy. Women are being told to take these powerful drugs and there's zero medical supervision. That's not healthcare. It's called negligence. It's medical negligence. And we're seeing heartbreaking stories about all these women who are bleeding alone in dorm rooms, bathrooms, parking lots, or even in their own cars in the parking lot. Clinics like Planned Parenthood calls this empowerment and empowering, but tell me how it's empowering to hand a teenager a handful of pills and say, good luck. The emotional fallout is just as real, by the way. There's a physical risk, but there's an emotional risk as well. Women reported feeling abandoned, traumatized, and even haunted by what they've done, especially when they see the tiny, tiny body of their baby passing and passing that. It's traumatizing, and nobody tells them that they're going to see the tiny baby in the pamphlet. So here's the truth, the plain and simple truth. Abortion pills are not safe. They're not kind, and they're not empowering. They actually hurt women, and they silence their pain by taking these chemical abortion pills, and they protect an industry by keeping the abortion in the dark. And it doesn't do anything to protect the individual at all. I'm Kat, and this has been Conservative Clips, Cat Clips, reminding you that real healthcare, it doesn't kill people, and real healthcare means empowering women and supporting women, not selling them lies in a bottle. Stay alert, stay bold, and always choose light. This has been Conservative Cat Clips. Hey, smash that like button, share this out with your friends, and subscribe to the channel. Like I said before we took the break, zero reason as to why a school would be asking students about their sexuality. Very bizarre, very weird. There's no reason, none. No reason why you would be asking a child, a 10-year-old, an 11-year-old, a 12-year-old about their sexuality. You know that, I know that. And you know that, I know that, you know that. So why is it that some of these public schools in Seattle don't know this? That they can't ask children about their sexual orientation because they shouldn't have any, okay? And I want to be clear, like, I understand. I think I kissed a boy on the cheek like in first grade, okay? And kids mimic what they see at home. I had loving parents, right? And, they see mom and dad, and they understand that eventually they're, at a very early age that, hey, I am going to be a mommy. I'm going to be a daddy, just like my mom and dad. And they understand that. But it is not the place of the public school to insert themselves in that conversation. That is a conversation to be had amongst parents and children. And, parents at this Seattle public school, many parents at the high school in Seattle are wondering why the Seattle public schools don't know that they are not to be talking with the children about their sexuality. And that is a conversation supposed to be reserved for at home. Like, that is a conversation to be had at home amidst parents and their children. Okay. And, you have crushes 10, 11, 12 years old. And that's, all very natural because you grow up with mommy and daddy and it makes sense. Like, you see that and you would want something like that. But it's much more complicated. And it is a complicated conversation that needs to be had at the home. So the creator of this gender identity survey, this survey has been given out to thousands of kids in the Seattle public schools. The creator of the survey is actually a doctor at Seattle Children's Hospital and has written articles about promoting gender-affirming medical care for kids. Okay, so this is the creator of the survey. Students are offered interventions and referrals after the survey. So this is fascinating. It's kind of like, a car salesman creating like a survey, and it's a very biased survey and gets you to think that you need a new car. And then he's like right there with a coupon for a new car or something like that. Okay. So these kids are offered gender reassignment surgeries and interventions and referrals to the doctor here after the survey that the doctor created. She makes money off of obviously these gender affirming care procedures and wants more kids to have them. So she creates a survey that prompts kids into wanting to get them. So let me talk about the survey. I wonder where they direct students who are confused about their identity, after the survey. They're obviously going to direct them to the Children's Hospital, the doctor who created this survey. And it's all very biased. And like the Seattle Children's Hospital has a gender clinic, and they give these kids or surveys to kids really to promote and recruit new patients and to confuse the kids into wanting these surgeries. And that's what the survey is designed to do. This is a massive scandal. It should be shut down. I'll share with you libs of TikTok. The doctor who is in charge of the whole shtick, her picture's up there, and then you can see the survey as well. But this needs to be shut down. It is the best I could describe it, maybe like a scam, where we're getting this doctor rich. She creates the survey. She gets the public schools to administer the survey. After the survey, the kids are really confused, and then they're pointed in the direction of this children's hospital that has a gender clinic. Okay, so there is the Dr. Laura Richardson, and there's her profile there, in case you were wondering. Okay, so at least, and I said that this could be administered up to thousands of students, okay? But at least 20 middle school and high school students in Seattle received the survey, or 20 middle school and high schools distributed. Okay, so each school distributed, and I'm thinking thousands of students got these surveys, and the surveys ask questions about sexual orientation and gender identity to students. They did not ask, obviously, the parents' permission to administer these surveys. I just want to go back to a time where you had to get your parents' permission to watch like a Hitler documentary, okay? Or like Schindler's List. I remember I had to go get my parents' permission to go watch, Schindler's List. But the parents were not asked for their permission before releasing the survey, nor do parents have any idea what these answers are going to be used for. Okay, once the kids complete the survey. And surprisingly, people are not happy about this. According to the National Review, the survey, known as the state's Check Yourself survey, is administered to every middle school and high school student in Seattle. It includes questions that students as young as 10 years old are required to answer. The prompts reportedly touch on sensitive topics ranging from sexual attraction, gender identity, to mental health and problems at home. Okay, this is truly disgusting. It's deranged, but you already know that. I'm sure you already know that. Truly disgusting. And really what's going on here, and this is grooming. Well, I won't say it's grooming because I know better, but it's grooming. What's going on here is they are trying to get kids to tell secrets, or to tell them the deepest, darkest secrets, or the deepest, darkest thoughts that they have in their heads. And once you do that, so think about a best friend, right? You talk with your best friend or your spouse, and that intimacy grows the more you reveal about yourself to this person. So my intimacy with my spouse is closer than that of a friend or an acquaintance, because my spouse probably knows the most about me outside of God. So God knows the most about me outside of my spouse. And I have a greater intimacy with God than I do, say, with my spouse, right? Or a more intense intimacy with God than I do, like even with my spouse. So what this is trying to do, these surveys, it is trying to increase closeness through the form of disclosure and trusting and secrecy, and disclosing those secrets, or disclosing the most darkest, deepest things about yourself. Okay. And through that grows a relationship or some sort of form of intimacy. And these adults know that. They know that that's how that works. Okay. Your relationships grow deeper the more you share. And at that age, 10, 11, 12, you're not sharing a whole lot with your parents. And what they're trying to do is grow a relationship, and a relationship with deep intimacy, better relationship, or deeper relationship than that of what the children have with their parents, or even God. Okay. So deeply deranged, disgusting, truly sick. The survey asked students to complete questions I am most likely to have a crush on, followed by a list of possible answers, includes all genders, males, females. The prompt reads, about me, I identify as, and then it offers an option questioning my gender identity. I'm non-binary. I identify as non-binary. I'm questioning my gender. Students were also reportedly asked to select their top goals for the coming year. To become or to be in a romantic relationship was amidst the choices here. So what's your goals, 10-year-old, for 2026? Your top goals for 2026. And at the top of the list, right, or amidst the choices here that they had to choose from, one of them was to be in a romantic relationship. I don't know about you, but I don't know any 10-year-old who enters into a romantic relationship. And like I said, to an extent, children, they up to, I would say, about puberty. Okay, so that's 12, 13, 14. Mainly even 15, like high school. They don't start developing true romantic or physical feelings towards the opposite sex until their teen years, late teen years. Okay, because there aren't the hormones, the biology isn't there. Okay, this is just a biological conversation we're having. What kids do up to that point will mimic, what they see at home. They know that they're supposed to, get married, and they have an understanding because guess what? Mom and dad are at home and they're mimicking. Okay. So it doesn't necessarily warrant like a full blown out birds and bees conversation at the age of 10. But parents have conversations with their kids. When I kissed a boy on the cheek in first grade, my mom had a conversation with me. Well, we don't have boyfriends until you get older. And, a relationship looks like him driving, and he can't drive because he's too young, and taking you to the movies. And, this is the conversations my mom would have with me when I was a small child. And, to keep it all into perspective, put it all into perspective for a young kid, you don't have romantic feelings. You're just mimicking, okay, what mom and dad do at home. And like kids at that age, he's a boy, I'm a girl. I'm going to mimic, what I see at home. My mom would kiss my dad on the cheek before he goes to work, and, they don't develop romantic relationships until much later in life. I would even argue post high school. A romantic relationship is very different from, this boyfriend, girlfriend, taking her to the movies kind of thing. Okay, that's not a romantic relationship. So, and these are things that are supposed to be conversations that are supposed to be happening at home. Okay, I want to emphasize that. I remember the good old days when schools focused on things like reading and math. I want to go back to those days. Okay. But the left now considers math racist. They don't like spelling. They don't like cursive. So I wouldn't hold your breath. We're probably not going to the good old days anytime soon. So you as a parent have to decide if this is what you want for your kids in public school. Do you want them participating in surveys that you don't know about and you don't know where the results are going? So some students appear to have resisted the questions. According to responses cited by the outlet National Review, one student reportedly wrote on his survey, "No, I'm 12. Another student asked, "Why are you asking me about my sexual orientation? I never want to do this again," is what they wrote on the survey. Good for those kids. They've probably got some good parents at home who have already had these conversations. And clearly the youth is not lost. Okay, at least not all of the youth. So the people that they're really preying on in these public schools are the confused children, the children who might not have that strong upbringing, those parental figures. And what they're trying to do is develop that deep, intimate relationship with that student by getting that student to divulge all of their deep secrets and thoughts. And they're hoping that an intimate relationship with the school or with school officials transpires out of that divulge, out of them divulging that. So that's, grooming. I don't know if I would call, I'd call it grooming. It looks like it, if it quacks like a duck, it sounds like a duck and looks like a duck. Maybe it's a duck. I don't know. Maybe I won't go as far as to say that because I'm smarter than that. But a major point of concern is, how the data is also going to be collected and where that data is going to go. So the National Review reported that the information from these surveys is allegedly shared with third parties, including the Seattle Children's Hospital Research Institute, King County, which includes Seattle. The U.S. Department of Education Student Privacy Policy Office is already investigating the Seattle area schools. Why does a third party need this information or is seeking out this information? What is it going to be used for? Why is this even considered important? Really, what's going on here is they want all the information. They're trying to find new patients. Okay, the Seattle Children's Hospital. They want to experiment on these children surgically, and they want to make money while doing it. And it's truly disgusting, considering all the problems that our youth is facing today. Our school-age children are facing today. You would think that this would be the least area of concern, their sexual orientation, gender identity, but clearly they think that there is nothing greater to solve than this. Their gender identity, who these kids have crushes on, and if they're interested in entering a romantic relationship at the start of the year. So if I didn't know any better, I would say that this is grooming behavior, but I do know better, so I won't be saying that. Nonetheless, this is totally inappropriate, as no place in our nation's public schools. That being said, I want to make education educational again, math, reading, writing. Like, can we get schools to do that, please? And like I said, it's very clear what these schools are doing. They're trying to get these kids to be very intimate with them. And that is weird. Very strange. And, I grew up in a high school, middle school, where there were some teachers who would allow you to call them by their first name, even went as far as to give you their phone number. I know of individuals in this public school that I went to that, pick up children and take them to school, buy them McDonald's and milkshakes before they're off to school. I've seen it, right? And you're blurring the line between, and this is biblical, you're supposed to have, and think of it as a circle, acquaintances, friends, your best friends, your spouse, and God and you. Okay, so the most intimate relationship you're supposed to have is with God. The next one would be with your spouse. The next one would be your best friends. Family is even before best friends, by the way. Your family, and then your acquaintances. And this is the way we ought to go about relationships. And what these acquaintances, because that's what teachers are to students. They should be acquaintances and nothing more. You're not their friend. You're not their family. You're not their spouse. And you're not God. Okay, so by allowing children to get into your car, take them to McDonald's, drive them to school, giving out your phone number, allowing the students to call you by your first name, you are deliberately blurring these lines for these children. And it's going to really come back later to bite them in the ass when they're adults, because this acquaintance, friends, family, best friend, spouse, God, relationship sphere is something that you live by, and it helps you maintain your relationships. It helps you, live your life. And these kids grow older, and then they can't distinguish the difference between an acquaintance and a best friend. And, you get a lot of times adults who can't distinguish those differences. And they're dedicating so much time to an acquaintance, or the same amount of time that they dedicate to an acquaintance as they would their spouse. And then we wonder why there's divorce rates, right? You dedicate, time, or you divulge, personal information about yourself to acquaintances when really, you're building up an intimacy with an acquaintance when you should be building up that intimacy with a spouse. And, it really screws up people, blurring this line. And shame on teachers who think that they're there to be friends with students. It's disgusting. It's weird. And it has no place in our public schools. So if you think you're the students' friends, you need to get out of teaching. That's not a place for you. All right. You guys have a blessed day. Bye-bye. I love you so much. Subscribe to the channel. We'll be back tomorrow morning, bright and early, 6 a.m. to 8 a.m. And we've got a lot of stuff planned for you this week. So be sure to never miss a program Monday through Friday. Love you guys. Bye-bye.